Good morning. You're now listening to Kingston Community Radio, airing on FM 92.5 and AM 920 WGHQ in Kingston, New York. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Panel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you. Mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. And good morning, this is Dan Gaddis, and thank you for tuning in, being early birds like us, and being a part of today's program. Monday, March 28th today, and it's 21 degrees, and you're with us on a Medical Monday with Dr. Ed Alio, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dina Roy from Hurley, and I support the Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR is talk radio and a call-in show. Our call-in number is 331-9255. That's your number to call in, 331-9255. And a special event tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are airing from the Elks Lodge, 550. We're teaming up for a breakfast live remote tomorrow, Tuesday, March 29th, which is tomorrow. Today is March 28th. Please come and join us and watch us clown around and do our show. And we'll be having breakfast. Breakfast is $10. Includes eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, and juice. Kingston Community Radio will be broadcasting live that morning, so come down with us with Cameron Rylance and Nina Postjapak and be a part of the show. We're going to do our normal show from that location, so our guests will be there too. So come join us tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., or come in, 7:30. Come in at 8. But come in and have some breakfast with us during the show at the Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue. Everyone is welcome, and it will be a great time. And that's a good kickoff for this year. We're planning on doing a few others. That's a little secret. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Ed Alio this morning. Dr. Ed Alio, are you ready?
I'm here, Dan. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Today we should have an interesting show. The first guest, who's not here yet, but is coming along, hopefully, is Matt Purcell, and we're going to talk on acupuncture. I know very little about acupuncture, and I thought it would be an interesting conversation and educational for many of us. Dan, what is our call-in number for people to call and ask questions?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, 331-9255, 331-9255 to call in and ask questions. And we've got a lot of questions about acupuncture. It's quite a diversion from our own Western medical practices,
yeah.
and but we start to understand the electrochemical fields within our bodies that really vitalize us and or get blocked. So
Right.
those electrochemical fields and paths in our bodies are what acupressure and acupuncture address, and that's the best I know.
You know, I thought about the acupressure the other day when I was watching some swim meets, and some of the fellows who were swimming, some of the men, had those cups on their back, and you could see where the cups were on,
Okay.
because they left like welts on their back from suction cups, and I'm assuming that that was the acupressure that you just mentioned, and I was going to ask Matt Purcell about that when he gets here, but again, there's various methods, and I don't want to go into them right now. I want him to help us with it, but like I said, I know little about it. A number of people have gone for acupuncture, and they say they do well. And I don't know how much is psychological. We'll put that aside and assume that it really works. It's the use of very small single-use needles, I know that,
Yeah.
that are flexible. And they can put them anywhere on your back, your hand, your forehead, etc. That's about all I know about it, in all
Exactly.
honesty.
Yeah, I haven't had that therapy. I have had acupressure, and I will report success. It's really a wonderful type of. Essentially, it's an advanced massage, acupressure, and it does work with the same meridians and. That's another term that I picked up along the way.
Good for you, Dan. Meridians.
Yeah, and paths that the energy flows through the body.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
so,
the acupressure, I understand, because of massage therapy, and I don't know the difference. Again, I imagine that you push on one spot.
Yeah, you
where-
know those same points. I think acupressure is just using rubbing and pushing and stuff like that on areas that represent exactly the same kinds of areas that you would use needles for with acupuncture, I believe, and that's why I said it like a question.
Well, in
I do believe.
my limited reading, I've learned that it can be used for pain. It can be used to help with stress in general and mobility a little bit. I'm not sure how the mobility part works, other than maybe releasing or relieving some of the pain in certain parts of your body. I know that my knee needs a little work.
It needs a little
Lubrication, a little
encouragement.
lubrication or
Yes,
something.
I do too. Yeah.
Oh, but that's the limit of my knowledge of acupuncture, but it's fairly well documented and supported by insurances, I understand.
I have gleaned that, and I appreciate that insurances are accepting. It's not off the beaten path anymore. It's considered a
Alternative.
viable therapy for people.
Alternative medicine.
Yep.
I do have some statistics to throw out there, and one is the global acupuncture market is worth, in the United States, $24 billion. How is that?
I think that's fantastic, because I remember when it first came through in the, when you first heard about it in the late 60s or early 70s, I believe, it was a non-entity. It was unaccepted yet, and most were Asian that were practicing it for people here in the West. So that is a huge growth, and it only means that it is very effective, because otherwise I don't think we would have embraced it as much as we did.
I agree. And this is that data I just gave you is from 2017. And in Europe, the market is led in Europe at the time at 32%, almost 33%. And interestingly enough, followed by the Asian Pacific, 29%. So it seems like the Americans and the Europeans have embraced acupuncture, at least in 2017, more than the Asian Pacific communities from where it emanated from originally.
That's a fantastic statistic.
Is that interesting?
It is, yes.
Well, I thought that it would be kind of fun to know how much the market has grown and who's in the market and what the market has accomplished.
Right here in Kingston, I think if you think about where you've been driving and things like that, you've probably seen acupuncture offices, at least a couple that I know of, just in my commutes and things like that. I've seen at least two, one on Maiden and Wall Street. Is a acupuncture center.
Purcell, I know, is on Pine Street.
Yeah, there we go.
3.
Yeah.
3. Mm-hmm. So, and I've seen a few others too. Outside of Kingston, I know there's a few more in the county. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and I know that there's different forms of acupuncture, philosophically speaking. I know the modern one is called the Eight Principles Tcm, and I was going to ask what TCM meant because I didn't have the slightest idea, but that's what it's called, the eight Principles of TCM. And the second one, which is the older system, as I've learned in reading, is the Taoist approach, which is better known as the 5 elements. What the 5 elements are, Dan, eludes me.
Right, we'll want to know.
I wanted to be educated.
Our guest is going to enlighten us quite a bit.
I'll have to Google if he doesn't show up here.
It actually derives from the Taoist religion. That's
right.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And what's the difference between Tao? How is Tao different from?
It's the same. I mean, a lot of terms like, for instance, Kiev used to be Kyev, and for instance, what's the capital of China? Beijing.
Beijing.
Yeah. And yes, we used to say Peking. So the European letters are rearranged to be more accurate to the original language than it used to be maybe 20, 30 years ago. So when we say Taoist, it's exactly the same as Taoist, which is the more modern way of saying it. It's the same religion. It's the same practices.
Okay. Again, I'm limited. I know a little bit about Tao and some of the concepts, and that's about it for me. So I know that it's also be interesting to know the difference between the Asians using acupuncture and Americans. Is there a difference in how educated are each of those two groups? I know there's some kind of degree or certificate to practice, and I know that the Secretary of State, if not, I'm sure the Secretary of State monitors it because of the stainless steel needles which are used. So like any organization that has needles outside of medicine or uses different chemicals, like in the barber and barbershops and nails, they have to be monitored by the Secretary of State. And I know also that the stainless steel needles are disposable, but there are others that you can then use again after disinfecting them. to prevent contamination and stuff. I don't think too many people use those needles. They probably use the stainless steel needles that are disposable. But again, it's a good question.
It's another good question. We have a lot of questions.
We certainly do.
Yes.
We just need a guest to answer the question.
Yes, we'll start with a heap and load of questions.
So, I know our station here is sometimes difficult to find for some people, since we're off the beaten path a little bit, even though we're at 16
Lucas Avenue, in case you're looking for it right now, our wonderful guest.
Yeah. And it's on, do we call this Lower Lucas or just Lucas?
I think this is Lower Lucas, because then Lucas Avenue turns into Lucas Avenue Extension as it goes down toward Ellenville.
Yeah. So we're on the lower part. It's only 1 block long, by the way.
It's only 1 block long between Crown and Washington.
Right. So, and then our next guest is going to be Neil Smaller. He is the pharmacist in Woodstock, and he's very knowledgeable on the different variants of the coronavirus. So we're looking forward to talking to Neil in the next hour. Neil's been on before with us, and he's very knowledgeable of the vaccines, also the variants, and also the boosters. And I know that the government is looking at a second booster for those over the age of 50. So
I am. There is nothing. I'm speechless when it comes to the amount of dedication that Neil Smoller has given the community. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of vaccinations that came through his efforts, especially at the inception of the vaccinations. He was the first one out. He was first one out of the gate when it came to being able to get to especially senior residences and nursing homes and things like that. It was just an unbelievable effort. Yep.
He was on before. He's quite knowledgeable. He's very verbal and dedicated to this. And when people say that they're anti-vaccine, he has the answers for those who are logical thinking people. You know, there's this debate about vaccination or not being vaccinated is a sad state for me. I'm a big believer in having people vaccinated, and there's no danger. But we have in this country, it seems like we have so many conspiracy theories that run rapid, and it's really sad to hear that. The one that I think about most often is when I was getting a booster at one of the pharmacies. The pharmacist was talking to me. I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. And this young girl who was getting her first vaccination was about 18 years old, and after she got the shot, she started to cry. And the pharmacist said, "What's the matter? Did it hurt?" She said, "No." She said, "What's your concern?" And her concern was, ready for this, that she saw on TikTok that you possibly leave the needle inside the person. And it's far-fetched that it seems. People are that uneducated about the
how
conspiracies.
gullible can we be?
Right.
How gullible can we be?
It's probably a better word. No,
Yeah.
I like uneducated. I'll stick with that one. Naive, gullible.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It's sad that we follow. Well, we used to say, you remember, we used to always say, "I heard it on TV," and that meant that it was gospel truth. And in some ways, back then, things were researched and vetted and double-checked a lot more than they are in social media.
That's for sure.
And so, people still think, "I saw it on TikTok, it must be true." I think that there's some element of that still rampant in our societies when we see, factoids from friends on Facebook that have shared it with you or something like that, and there it goes, and there it grows also.
Yeah, social media is has a real positive effect on the country, but it also has some downside to it. And again, Neil is at the Apothecary Pharmacy in Woodstock, and he'll be kind of a fun person to have on board in the next hour. Well, while we're waiting for our discussion on acupuncture, maybe we should turn it to the only thing I know, which is hearing. I don't know what else to talk about at this point. I can talk about other things, but I should probably talk about what I know. I don't want to do any social commentary because that's not my gig.
Yeah.
And
well, thank you. And anything anything we hear from you in regard to, because this is all radio, everybody's listening.
well, and if they have questions, they can call in at
absolutely.
3. Yeah, and and I'd encourage people to call in because we can talk on. I can talk on what I know, which is hearing or lack thereof, or reduction of hearing. I can also talk on dizziness and the two different kinds of dizziness that individuals experience, and which one is the ear and which one is not from your ear. And then we could talk about tinnitus or tinnitus or ringing in your ear or roaring or hissing, whatever it is. Those things really plague people to a point where they become very distracted about it. And again, if you'd like to call in and ask me a question about what I know about, but don't call about acupuncture, you can call, of course. Maybe you can tell me something about it, because my knowledge is limited. Oh, there is one aspect of acupuncture which I thought was of interest to me, and it's called auricular therapy, which is the word emanates from the auricle, which is your ear. It's also known as the pin of the auricle. And what they do in the auricular or auricular therapy is that they insert needles to stimulate points of the outer ear, which is supposed to be a approach to eliminate pain or stress in other parts of your body. That's all I know about that part. When I grab my ear, it doesn't do anything for any other part of my body, but
it is a lot of nerve endings, and it's a very sensitive part of the body.
Right. There was a thing about pressure at your TMJ and by your ear that you can push on a little bit above toward your top of your head. I mean, above your ear. And if you press there's like a muscle that feels pretty tender. And if you hold it there, that's supposed to help with headaches. And the other one is between, now I only know this because people told me, I don't know if it works or not, is between your thumb and your index finger. You press there and hold, and that's supposed to relieve your headache also.
Isn't that that same point right there between your thumb and your forefinger, isn't that also something that you can do if you're starting to feel a little seasick?
I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
but I know where seasick emanates from. I can talk about that aspect.
Absolutely,
of it.
Yes.
What, you want me to tell you about seasickness from your ear point of view? I don't know about your
definitely,
pressure.
Definitely, yes.
Well, your ear. There's 3 ways that we maintain balance, and it's pretty simple thinking if once you hear about it, and that is you maintain balance by the use of your eyes, your ear, because there's a balance mechanism in your ear, and the back of your head, the lower part of your brain, the cerebellar, and that's called proprioception. Proprioception is knowing where your body parts are in space. In other words, knowing that your hand and your fingers, where they are in relationship to the center of your body. So if you were to close your eyes and put your hands out in front of you and take your index fingers and bring them from around the side and touch your index fingers together at their point, that's proprioception. And that's the back of your lower part of your brain called cerebellar. If they continually miss each other, or if you can't find your fingers with your eyes closed by doing that, that's a proprioception indicator that there may be a balance problem from that area or not. But so you stay upright 3 ways. So once one of those 3 are affected, your balance becomes a problem. So if your eyes are closed, for example, and you try to walk, sometimes you're not as steady because you're relying on the your ear, which and the proprioception again. That's an interesting aspect. So when your eyes are open, you become more steady. So when people become dizzy, which is vertigo, spinning, the room spins, you spin, or when you turn, you feel like you're going to fall over, but you don't fall over, that's your ear. That's the vestibular part of your ear. There's 2 parts of your ear. There's a hearing part of your ear and the balance part of your ear. And if you remember from your days in high school, biology, there were things called the semicircular canals. That's the balance mechanism that helps you. And each one of those canals has a different leveling effect, if you will, by turning your head, bending, turning one way or another, lifting your head up or back or forward. And so that's the balance mechanism. So back to the 3 points. The eyes, and then your ears, the vestibular part, and your cerebellar, the base of your brain. So now when your ear is affected and your balance is off from your semicircular canals, and it's usually the posterior semicircular canal, when that happens, you have vertigo. So that means that one of those 3 legs is now weak. Eyes, ears, brain. So when that happens, people become disoriented sometimes in the sense that they don't feel well. They also may get nauseous or even vomit because there's a relationship between your ear and your stomach. We can talk about how later. But so that makes you not feel well. So people who are vertiginous, dizzy, when they are dizzy, the first thing they want to do, which is the last thing you should do, is close your eyes. See?
Yes, yeah. You have to know the horizon.
Right. So
balance.
when you now think about it for a second, you have the 3 points: eyes, ears, brain, proprioception. So one of them is weak, your ear. Then you close your eyes. The 3 legs,
You
the
only got
3-legged
one
stool.
left. Yeah. Mhm.
You don't. It doesn't work. And so when people drink too much, for example, and you become dizzy, and I don't know if you've experienced that or not, Dan, probably not, drinking too much.
Oh, one time in 1973. Okay. Okay.
There you go.
November 22nd.
Only takes one time. But what people do when they're drunk, they close their eyes, and that's when they get sick. So closing your eyes, so you tell people when they're dizzy to keep their eyes open, and I tell them to put your hand up in front of you and look at your thumb. And that will help to slow down the dizziness. It sounds like it's the wrong thing to do, but it works because it stabilizes you. Or to look at something. And the other thing, people who tend to be dizzy or have vertigo, what they should do is keep a nightlight on. They should keep a nightlight in their room and one in their bathroom. Because again, when you have a weak vestibular system, you turn the lights off, it's like closing your eyes, the same effect. So I encourage people to do that. And when we come back, we'll talk about the 3rd leg to the ground, and we'll talk about what that means. Okay? Take it away, Dan.
Thank you, Dr. Ed Alio, and thank you so much for your expertise. You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, on AM 920 and 92.5 FM. My name is Dan Gatis, and it is Monday, March 28th, and 21 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston. We woke up with quite a bit of chill this morning, and it's going to go up to 28 degrees with a few flurries or snow showers possible. And tonight, we'll go back down to 19 degrees with partly cloudy skies and a low of 19. Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high of 39 degrees. And Tuesday night, going back down to 21 degrees, clear to partly cloudy skies. And Wednesday, mainly cloudy with a high of 41. Kind of a mixture of rain and snow showers developing in the afternoon on Wednesday. And Wednesday night, it goes down to 34 degrees. So this chill factor that we've got going on in the evenings and nights is probably going to be waning. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Every 17 minutes, Make-A-Wish makes the impossible possible. They tame dragons. They bring Saturn to Earth. They help superheroes save entire cities. They even make unicorns fly. All to give children the strength they need to fight their critical illnesses. Every wish takes muscle. Help us make sure every wish comes true. Join us at wish.org.
The stigma of addiction is destroying lives across the country, preventing our loved ones from getting the help and treatment they desperately need. We are Shatterproof, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the stigma and devastation that addiction causes families. We're changing laws, we're creating a community of support, and we're providing evidence-based resources for prevention, treatment, and recovery. We are working hard every single day to reduce the secrecy and remove the shame of addiction. Stigma shatters lives. Rise up against addiction so another life isn't lost to this disease. Join the Shatterproof movement. Get involved today and learn more at shatterproof.org/riseup. That's shatterproof.org/riseup.
Hi, my name is George Post from Ulster Park, New York, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you. Where else can you speak to your local representatives on the air and have your questions answered? So thank you and support KCR.
331-9255 for your call-in numbers, and you are listening to Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. It's 21 degrees on this March 28th. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge 550 team up for breakfast live remote Tuesday, March 29th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Kingston Elks Lodge at 143 Hurley Avenue, Kingston. Cost is $10. A spread of breakfast includes eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, and juice. Kingston Community Radio will be broadcasting there, and now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Ed Alio, and good morning again.
Thanks, Dan. Mr. Matt Purcell just called in. I made a mistake on the time, so he's good. He should be on. We'll ask him some questions. But while we're waiting for him, so Matt Purcell, are you there?
I'm here now.
Oh, good. Thanks for calling in, partner. My
You're
fault.
welcome.
Matt Purcell does acupuncture, and he's located on, where are you located? Pine Street. Right. And how long have you, tell me a little bit about yourself, Matt, and how you got into acupuncture, and we'll go and talk about acupuncture.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, that's a long story. I've been in practice for 22 years now. And, oh, wow. All right. I got into acupuncture through athletics. I have, as a child growing up, I was a relatively healthy kid, but when I was in high school, I got spinal meningitis, and that, it's a febrile disease, so it's kind of like, it's like a scorched earth attack on your body, and ever since, obviously I survived, but I I had a pretty weak immune system after that, and I was also a hardcore insomniac after that, and I got really unhealthy and out of shape, and was having unhealthy relationships with people, and after that, and then as a way of trying to change my life, I started riding. Well, this is back in the late '80s. There was a new phase coming around called mountain bikes, and I started riding mountain bikes to start changing my life. And then I started racing, and I started hanging out with the great people, and I moved out west to race bicycles.
And so, okay, that is a good story.
I tell you, yeah, it is a long one.
Yeah, well, let's. I need a shorter version right now.
All right.
And so, so you did it as kind of your own self therapy. So, how do you have to have a degree? You know, how did you study? Where did you study?
Oh yeah, so yeah, I was when I moved out west, I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this girl I was dating at the time, who later became my wife, said I should try acupuncture for my health when other things weren't working, and it really helped. And then, so how one becomes an acupuncturist? Yes, you do have to be accredited and licensed, and the country has a bunch of pretty good schools around. I was lucky to go to one right there in New Mexico.
Are there any in New York State?
Yes, there was. Oh man, I'm a little off.
It's okay.
With are keeping up in track with the schools, but there was two really good ones. I think that one folded recently, but there is one pretty great school in Manhattan.
Oh, cool, cool. So anyhow, what is acupuncture exactly?
Oh, it's a really, really, really old healing modality that apparently works so well that it's lasted the test of time. We kind of work with, we work with a life force energy called the chi, and it has different circuits in the body, and we tap into those different circuitry. It's hard to describe it in just a soundbite. At least it is for me.
Well, that's okay. So it's it's an alternative medicine, right? And,
yep.
And insurance, does insurance pay for this?
Some of them do, yes.
And how long is a session?
Sessions are about an hour to an hour and a half. At least they are for me.
Really?
Yeah, different practitioners, and there are quite a few excellent practitioners here in Kingston. We all have different styles, different techniques, and that will take different time.
Do you have an association you guys belong to?
No, yeah. Well, there's the Association of American Association of Acupuncturists in New York State. That's a great association. That's our lobbying firm and stuff like that, and our way of all communicating. But as far as locally, no, it's just like little cliques of friends.
Cool. So, from what I understand, and my limited knowledge, that is, it's a single-use needle. Is it one needle, 5 needles, more than that?
For a person's technique,
Therapy.
Yeah, it's like definitely single-use needle. And then again, some practitioners have different styles. Some of them call for lots of needles. Some of them call for little, small amounts, depending on how the patient presents.
Well, what do you use?
I tend to go pretty big. I tend to use a lot, but that's also how I like to be treated myself. Uh-huh. Whereas someone like my wife, her body does not like a lot of needles. Too much or a lot is too much. So she responds well to like 4 or 8.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Whereas I respond better to like 30.
That's a big difference. And how do you know where to put them, Matt?
Again, how the patient presents, and also the different styles. So take, for instance, my style, which tends to be pretty direct. So if I'm working on like some athletes, or if I'm working on like tennis elbow, or I'll usually work just around the elbow. And then how do I know where it is? That was just school. So
my neck is stiff all the time. So I feel like I'm on one of those shows on TV. So my neck is stiff all the time. What should I do, doctor?
Well, if you were getting acupuncture, the acupuncturist would kind of like assess your range of motion, palpate different muscle groups. Probably if Like you're like most people, your levator scapular muscles tight, or your scalenes, and they would palpate those muscles, and they would go from there. You can usually work on motor points or trigger points in those muscles.
What does palpate mean?
It's basically touch, feeling where parts of the muscle are sensitive. So like my way of palpation is like I would go against the grain of the muscle. So say the muscle fibers go north and south, I'll palpate with my hand east and west.
So it's sort of looking like a knot in their muscle, like?
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Or it'll feel like a knot.
Yeah, yeah. And then once you find that, then you put a needle in there?
Yep.
More than one, of course, in your style.
More than my style, yeah. And there's also what we call distal points, where, if someone's neck is hurting, or if you get like headaches or migraines, there are pretty effective points on the hands and the feet that I use for that.
Okay, well, I always like to get clarification what distal means now. Distal, medial, what do you mean when you say if their neck hurts, why do you put it on their hand? What's that mean?
Oh, so yeah, that's part of where the channel goes.
Oh, I see. So it's
Like
distal meaning like
we're working on.
So for us, is distal means distance from the point. So you have these channels. Hey, Dan, what was the term you used for the channel?
Meridians?
Meridians,
exactly.
Yeah, Dan's really educated well on this stuff. So you follow the meridian, sort of like the map around the world, the meridian. And so if your guy's neck hurts, you go down someplace else. And is that where you would place the needle?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. And how long does it take before people have benefit? One time, 10 times, twice?
Excellent question. In my opinion, the more internal the person's disharmony, the more related to your organs it is. Still there?
Yeah, I'm here. We're here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So the longer something's been going on, the longer it'll take to dissipate. So, but if someone's coming in with like a frozen shoulder or neck ache, usually that can get relief within one session.
Really?
Yeah.
And to me, and no offense, because I don't know anything, Matt Purcell, it seems like magic. I don't know how that stuff works.
No offense taken at all.
What's that?
Yeah, no offense taken at all. I've been doing this 22 years, and it still seems like magic to me.
Okay. Well, I know that in my reading there are two main philosophies or approaches, and one of them I don't understand. The first one says the modern standardization is called the 8 Principles of TCM. What does TCM mean? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. TCM stands for Traditional Chinese Medicine. It was, acupuncture was usually it was practiced usually by families, and the wisdom was handed down from parent to child, and they just continue that tradition. But when Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong had their civil war in China, and the communists won, the Communist Party needed acupuncturists, so they needed doctors really quickly because they kicked out most of Western medicine, and they need doctors really quickly. So they took all these different styles of acupuncture and kind of codified it, or I'm not going to say watered it down, but distilled it into an easily teachable form, and that became TCM, Traditional Chinese Medicine.
Oh, cool. Well, and again, for listeners, we talk about Mao, we're talking mainland China communists. We talk about Mao Zedong, we're talking about Taiwan, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what's going on right now. There seems to be a flare between those two right now. Anyhow, moving away from that, the second, older system was called Taoism, the ancient one. How is that different than the 8 principles of TCM?
Oh, alrighty. I should probably preface everything I'm saying by I'm not an expert with Taoism, even though I love it so much. So Taoism, is basically it's a really ancient philosophy where you observe nature and your place in it, and how to swim through life with it. And acupuncture, how I was taught from my teachers, that acupuncture came out of Taoism itself. And So how I wouldn't say it differs so much, the TCM, from Taoism, just because it's born from Taoism.
So it's more of the philosophy of how people think they're swimming through their pain?
I know, swimming through the pain of life, I guess.
The meridian?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I saw those two terms, and I was just wondering. And I was talking to Dan earlier about this, and the market in 2017. I didn't realize that the United States spent more money than anybody else of the three that I have, $24 billion on acupuncture, and whereas Asia Pacific areas were at 29.4%. I found that to be interesting.
That's fascinating. I did not know that fact.
There you go. See it? Well, we all learned something today. That's on my research.
That's great.
And then we're also, Dan and I were talking about the different variations of acupuncture, which is like acupressure, which I think I don't know if you mentioned that or Dan did. Acupressure sounds like when you're looking for those distal points, but it's really a pressure thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I think acupuncture. Yeah, there's some schools of thought who would say acupuncture came out of acupressure, which is people just, pressing on where it hurts. Usually motor points or trigger points, which also, incidentally enough, are very similar to acupuncture points on the body.
And then there's electro puncture, which is still using needles, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah, at least for me. There's like different laser style acupuncture, heat laser acupuncture, which I'm embarrassed to admit I don't know very much about. I have my little niche and I work well with that. But yeah, for me, electro acupuncture is you can stimulate the points by hooking. You put the needles in, and then you have like this little what looks like a TENS unit and has alligator clips, and you can hook them up to the needles.
Yeah, I know. I figured it had something to do with TENS. TENS units, for the sake of discussion, is where you can put electrodes on different parts of the body, like at two points, top of a muscle or in the lower part of a muscle, and stimulate it to kind of relax the muscle or the nerve and get the muscle to relax. Is that correct? The same approach
Yes.
would happen with the needles?
Yep, exactly. Coming from a very biased view as an acupuncturist, I feel acupuncture is a little better at that because the needles are in the belly of the muscle, and you can stimulate them, and I feel you get a better result.
Well, that's okay. Who wants to be shocked anyhow?
I can't say it doesn't feel bad. It's the TENS units for certain muscles and things like that. Hey, we're electromagnetic. That's what we are,
Exactly.
and it definitely has its place.
Dan's a man of the world. Dan, did you have acupuncture with electronically? He's not. He's answering the phone right now. He probably has, but Dan embraces all these different modalities. He's a man of the world. I'm very limited, I guess, that way. But and the other one that I saw was called, and I mentioned to Dan, auricular therapy, auricular acupuncture, which is nothing more than putting needles in the pinna of the ear, which is the auricle.
Yes.
So, that's supposed to. Did you ever try that one?
Oh yeah, I do that. That's daily for me.
Is that right?
Yep. I use it as an adjunct treatment for people when they come in. Especially, most people get really relaxed when you do auricular acupuncture. So if someone's kind of keyed up or a little panicky, I'll always do the ears.
Really?
Yep.
And why is that? What are the since I'm an ear guy, why does your ear relax you down? What's happening?
Yeah, it's again the magic of acupuncture, or the seemingly magic of acupuncture. It's like my teachers called it a microsystem. It's kind of like how foot reflexologists would work on. They stimulate your feet because there's nerve endings. All the nerve endings of the body either begin or end at the feet. So that's kind of like a microsystem of the body is your feet, and then the ears equally. Or it's the same thing for us. There's certain certain little spots in the ear correspond to different organ systems in the body.
I've been working with the ears for about 40 years, and every time I stimulate them, nothing happens. Only kidding. But
I remember your office in Kingston when would hang out with your sons.
Yeah, that's right. You knew my two sons. Eddie, my older son, right?
Yep.
Well, he's coming back today. Matter of fact, he lands in JFK in about 2 hours from Thailand. So talk about Eastern medicine, Eastern part of the world. He likes hanging out there, so he does well. And he can even speak a Thai.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That.
Matt, I have a question.
Yes.
How far has acupuncture gone into the veterinary sciences and the veterinary practices?
Oh, I think quite a bit. It's huge now. Most vets that I hear of from talking from my patients do acupuncture on their pets.
Do they know what they're doing?
I
didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah.
I'm sure they do, huh?
Yeah, well, the reason why I don't really know for sure is because vets are not allowed to do acupuncture in humans, and acupuncturists are not allowed to do acupuncture on animals. It's even though the points are the same, herbal treatments are exactly the same.
It's called, from my vantage point, it's called turf. You know,
yeah.
We all have to protect our turf. You can't touch a puppy, but anyhow, that's interesting, Dan. That you come up with the veterinarian thing. I didn't even know that, Dan.
Yeah, it's big, and I will say that the patients that I've spoken to have had great results with their vets around here. So I'm going to say the vets are doing a pretty good job.
Well, you're a good man. You know, you're willing to share your field of acupuncture with the veterinarians. That's nice. So the needles are these. My idea of a needle is different. So tell us about these needles. What they're like? How thick are they? How narrow are they? Are they flexible?
What does it feel? Flexible. What does it feel like when it enters your body?
Yeah, there's a good one.
Alrighty. So the way I describe it, or tell my patients, or for people coming in for the first time, usually what it feels like is you'll first feel a pressure, and that's a little plastic tube that I'm using. It's a guide tube for the needle. In China, they usually do not use a guide tube, and they use pretty big needles. I use pretty small ones, and I usually use a really plastic guide tube. So someone will feel the guide tube, and then me pressing, and then they'll feel like a little tap. Think of you tapping your fingernail on like a table. That's what they'll feel. And then when the needle goes in, it should be like maybe a pinch at worst, maybe a pinch. But then when I get the spot, that's the important point. When I get the spot on the meridian, when I get the chi on the meridian, the patient should feel like a pressure or distension. Sometimes a warmth, or sometimes people will tell me they feel like a liquid sensation.
So the guiding thing is like a cap or a cover. So you push down in the plastics, they feel that pressure, and then the needle gets inserted.
It's like the tube. It's like actually just a long tube, just a little bit shorter than the needle. So the needle is in that tube, and then when you press on the skin, the handle of the needle is just sticking up out like about a millimeter or two. And then you tap the top of the needle.
So does the tube stay along with the needle?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No.
I'm trying to visualize this, so that the listeners have an idea. And by the way, if anybody's interested in asking Matt Purcell any questions, please feel free to call at 331-9255 or 845-331-9255, and we'd be glad to take a call. If you have a question about acupuncture, because I'm sure many people are somewhat don't have the same knowledge base as those who've had acupuncture, and it's always eluded me. I hear people who go for acupuncture. I've never done it myself, and I see Dan. Dan's done everything. You've done acupuncture?
No,
Dan?
I haven't had a chance to. I'm becoming more and more intrigued, Matt. to come and have a session or two. I really am.
There you go. So you got one of your patients already. Dan already learned. But for you, Dan, we're going to, those little tiny ones. We're going to use the ones from China.
Those big giant swords.
I once had acupuncture from a Okinawan priest, and he used gold needles on me, which they were massive, almost made my eyes pop out.
Well, but let's make sure that your mentor's philosophy of gold needles isn't being used by Matt Purcell, correct?
I am not doing that. And I only use the big Chinese needles on people who are late all the time.
Oh, good.
I'm kidding.
So I should have one for you then.
Exactly. My apologies again for that.
So when you go home, when you get to your office, Matt, since you were about 20 minutes late, make sure you stick yourself, will you?
All right, I will. I'm actually at my office right now.
Good. Get a needle out, would you? But the big gold one.
I deserved it. I earned it.
No, just kidding. You're doing a great job. I was looking at the size of the needles. I did a little research. That's why I'm able to talk a little bit about this. And the picture I have is it's up against a penny. So it's about, if you put the penny on top of the needle, it would stick out just a hair on each end, or maybe a little more than that.
Yeah.
So it's not a very big needle then, is it?
No. Yeah, like if you do like a hypodermic needle, like a standard size hypodermic needle, like 10 of my needles can fit into the head of a hypodermic.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, that's pretty tiny.
Yeah, they're really teeny.
They look about, what, an inch and a half long?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm working on sciatica, you can do like a 2-inch needle, 3-inch needle.
I was thinking, when we're talking about necks and stuff, how do you, when you put your needles in, how do you make sure that you're in the muscle and not anywhere there's a vascular system?
Well, that's part, schooling, knowing where to go and where not to go. But the patient should feel it. I'll communicate with the patient. I should feel it on the needle that I'm in the right spot, and they should also feel it. They should feel that warmth, that pressure, that distension, and that's how I know I'm in the right spot. If they don't feel anything, then then you're wrong.
But you're always right. They always feel something. Good for you. So that's where the palpation comes in trying to figure out where the tension is in the muscle, correct?
Yep.
So how is it different between people who are stressed emotionally and those who have tension in their muscle? How do you know where to put the needle for stress, for example? And is that always in a muscle, or is it someplace else?
For me, it's both. I'll work on the muscles and what I would call the distal points, or points that are more related to an organ. So if someone's like really, say if they're really stressed and they're like, they're like red in the face, or they're in their head a lot, and they're like scrunching their shoulders, or people would say their shoulders are in their ears. It's like they're like bunching up, and that's for us that would be lots of points down on the feet. For what we call liver and gallbladder meridians, and then points in the muscles. Sorry, did I ramble? Did I answer that question?
You did a good job. You answered the question, which brings me to the next question. Since you're talking about your meridians again, tell me what aspect of the body is affected by using acupuncture in the ear, since I'm an ear guy.
Depends. Like right in the cavum concha, or around the helix, around the helix of the ear, the top of the ear. That's more for blood pressure, anxiety, stuff like that. Or in the cavum concha, in the not in the canal of the ear, but around the canal. That's more organ related. So the deeper into the auricle, you get, it's similar to the body. It's more deeper into the body, more organ related, the farther out.
So when we, again, for the audience, we talk about the auricle, we're talking about the ear, and we talk about the cave, the concha. That's the little, where you put your finger in your ear and you put it, instead of putting it in the canal, you put it toward the side of the canal. That's the little cave. So that's deeper for inside the body?
Yes, exactly. Thank you for saying that more succinctly than me.
How about the earlobe?
Oh yeah, there's the earlobe. Mostly what I use like around the earlobe is for like glaucoma and tinnitus.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that because we were talking about tinnitus before you came on the air. Because I'm a big tinnitus guy. Hold on a second.
Wow, that's by the way, Neil Smoller is ready for our 802, 803. Sure. So there's a lot that can be done with acupuncture for tinnitus.
Says you, Dan.
No, I'm just.
That's a question?
It's actually a question.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It is what I was taught, and tinnitus is very, very difficult to treat. And acupuncture is, I would not say a cure. I've never cured tinnitus on anyone. I've maybe helped it temporarily.
Good. Okay. Well, see how fast this goes by, Matt Purcell?
Yeah.
And we're at the end of our hour here, or a half hour.
My apologies for that.
Let's maybe we'll do this again. What do you think?
I will do it again, and I'll bring needles into the studio, and I will show up on time this next time.
Okay. Well, we can put them on Dan.
I'll be a willing participant. Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
So listen, thanks for calling in, and I learned a lot, and we'll do it again. Okay, partner?
All right. My apologies again, and my thanks for you guys talking to me.
Okay, take care. Goodbye.
You too. Bye.
Bye now.
Okay, and thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. You are with us here with Dr. Ed Alio, and we just had a wonderful discussion about acupuncture with Matt Purcell over on Pine Street. And we didn't get his contacts, but perhaps we can publish them for you throughout the show. It's 21 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston, and this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Are you a renter or homeowner having trouble paying past due electric and gas bills? The Regular Arrears Supplement Program may help. If you're eligible for the program, you could receive up to $10,000 in aid. If you're behind in rent payments, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program may also help. Get the relief you need to help pay off those bills. Visit the Assistance Programs section of centralhudson.com for eligibility and application requirements.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are Lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
Hi, this is Diane Eastwick from Athens, New York, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
And thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio. Today it's going to be cloudy with a few flurries or snow showers possible, and a high only up to 28. And tonight we're going to go down to a low of 19 with a little bit of partly cloudy skies. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high of 39. And Tuesday night, clear to partly cloudy with a low of 21. And Wednesday, mainly cloudy with a mixture of rain and snow showers developing in the afternoon with a high of 41. And we only go down to about 34 degrees on Wednesday night. So I think that cold snap is going to be over from through Wednesday and Thursday. And this upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Herzog's. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building and maintenance and painting needs, and discover the difference of buying local. Sales ongoing at herzogs.com. And one more huge event announcement. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge 550 team up for a breakfast live remote. And that is going to be Tuesday, March 29th from 7 to 9 a.m. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Come on in whenever you don't have to come in exactly at 7 o'clock. You can come in at 8:30 and have a breakfast. Breakfast is $10, and it includes eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, and juice. And that is going to be live with Cameron Rylance and Nina Poshtapak during their normal show from that location. So come in and enjoy the show and the guests with us tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue. Everyone is welcome. And without further ado, let's get back to Dr. Ed Alio and our new guest.
Thanks, Dan. I think we have Neil Smaller. Neil, are you on with us?
I am. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to have you back on, partner. You're a good man. And Neil's a pharmacist at the Apothecary in Woodstock. Excuse me. Neil's been on before with me, and I consider him to be very knowledgeable on COVID-19. And we're going to, if we can, Neil, I'd like to pursue some updates on the virus, and talk about the new variant, the Deltacron, after the Delta variant itself, and its origin of COVID-19. I believe its origin is from SARS CV2, but I'm not sure of that. Anyhow, tell us, where are we at with the Omicron and with COVID-19?
Well, I mean, I don't think that we're post-COVID, but pretty much everybody's like, screw COVID, we're done with it, And I feel like right now it's more of an emotional war than it is anything. The pandemic is still here. And when people are surprised or shocked about the potential of another wave or surge coming our way, I get confused because this is now kind of following a pretty predictable pattern. We're going to have an increase in activity in April. We'll probably see something in June, and we'll see something around the holidays, right? That seems to be how it's unfolding here in America, right? And we should not be surprised about any new variant, whether it's Omicron or Deltacron or any of this stuff, because I think we have enough evidence in front of us that this thing is going to hop between different like animals and unvaccinated people, mutate and spit back out as a variant. Now, are you guys getting a feedback too? Or
yes, we're just
yes,
talking
indeed.
about that.
I was trying to rectify it with the position of the mics, but are you on speakerphone?
I am on I'm using a headset that has a microphone on it. I can try to switch to my regular phone. Let me see.
That usually is better. Okay, try that again.
This is what you would want?
That actually sounds that sounds like it's working better.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So
you were saying about the people being nervous, the fact that we're going to get different variants, and but the variants aren't at the same level of severity. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think that's all relative as well. We have vaccines now, and we have treatment, and we have a radically different understanding of the virus. And so when we get infected now, we're getting infected with a highly contagious variant that if had happened to us on the first run, we would have been in trouble. But I think that because so many people are vaccinated, it's like we're really showing better outcomes. So yes, most people that get COVID now are experiencing cold-like symptoms if they're not in a vulnerable group. Now, at the same time, my number 2 in the COVID world here on my team, she just got COVID, and she's young and healthy, and she got whacked for like a week, and she had the low SpO2s and everything that we would associate with those more bitey symptoms of COVID from the Beta and the Delta strains, and she's fully vaccinated, of course, and boosted, and wears protective equipment all day long.
So, again, it depends on the person's immune system and how healthy they are. If they have any other comorbidities, that always makes it worse. But you say that the Delta Cron is a little more severe than the Beta or Delta itself?
I think we know that it's radically more contagious, right? And so even if it's the same as Delta or Beta, more people get infected, the more people will die, that kind of a thing, right? So so the severity of it has been downplayed, and the discussion around the vaccine or the virus being mild really comes from the fact that a lot of the population is vaccinated. And so, if you are vaccinated, the symptomology seems to be mild, and that's really what's going on. So whether it's Omicron or Deltacron or whatever these new strains are, I think that we should still have the same precaution level to try to reduce the spread and prevent us from getting it. But if we stay up to date with our vaccinations, we can be more confident in in our body's ability to survive it, I guess. Right.
So,
and I say that generally, because my advice is always twofold. The vulnerable population, you are at much higher risk of having those problems despite being boosted or vaccinated or whatever. So yeah.
So what do you say to those who are still resisting the vaccination? First of all, what's the percentage of people in this country that are vaccinated now, you think? What was the number?
I think that first doses, I think we're approaching 80% or something like that. And then, we did have Omicron rip through the population and acted as vaccination/booster for a big chunk of the population, right? And so there's a lot of us that have been exposed to it. But the thing that everybody has to remember is that it's clear that our bodies do not produce long-term protection against COVID. If you get vaccinated, your antibodies will wane over time. 4 to 6 months is when they start to really diminish. If you get COVID, 4 to 6 months after you have COVID, your protection diminishes. So getting sick doesn't get you out of this, whereas in other conditions it does. So even if we had 80% of the people with their primary series, if they're not up to date with their booster dose, they could still get sick, and they certainly can spread it, And so at this point, the idea that I don't want to get a vaccine, I really don't have much to say. I've said everything I can say. We've all said what we can say.
Well, what could you say? That you already said. Say it again.
I mean, it's one of the most studied, scrutinized, tested, and understood and effective and safe interventions in human history. Have you ever heard of anything having hundreds of thousands of trial participants in countries all across the world, and then having given billions of doses of something? And we now have 2 years of data on the thing because we've been studying it for that long, right? And so if you are resistant to the safety or any of that other stuff versus the alternative, which is getting COVID, there's not much beyond that we can say, right? Because nobody has a leg to stand on when they talk bad about the vaccine. And again, this is for the people that are eligible, that can take it, that have no allergies against a component. Anybody who can't take the vaccine, obviously those are not vaccine resistant people. Those people are what are called contraindicated, right? And so the people that are like, nope, I'm not doing this vaccine. Nope, I'm not doing a booster. I've got nothing further to say. If you can't look at the past 2 years and say, okay, this is clearly how this whole thing works, I understand it, and the reason I don't think I have anything to say yet is because I think it's clear that everybody spends far too much time listening to their media of choice, right? And they spend all day long, and I don't have loud enough of a voice or persistent enough of presence in most people's lives to overcome all of the emotional stuff that's there. Now, that'll go both ways, the vaccine resistant and the people that are trying to fake having immune compromised disorders so they can come and get an early second booster dose. You know?
Yeah, it is.
People are a little weird.
It's fatiguing. It's fatiguing for me because, like you, I'm a big proponent of vaccination, and the resistance is such that it's talking about it to these people is fatiguing. It's almost like in my field, with hearing. They work in noise, so they listen to loud music, and they say to me, "Well, is that dangerous?" I said, "Well, you lose your hearing eventually. If you if you work in loud noise or you're listening to loud music all the time, you'll lose your hearing." And they go, "So what? Why don't you tell people?" I says, "I'm tired of doing that. I'm not doing it anymore." If they're that naive and they think that they have tough ears, then God bless them. But my job is over. If somebody asks me, I'll tell them. But sort of the vaccination is the same thing. I have people close to me who refuse to be vaccinated, and as much as you tell them, they're so either I'm going to use the word ignorant because that's what I think it is. I think it's ignorant of the fact of what is the science. How does it really work? You won't get sick. It's not a live vaccine, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's not about you, it's about the people around you who are compromised, who are older, who could get sick from you and die.
Right. Well, I mean, so it's really a psychological thing, and it's not unique to America, but it's certainly strong in America. There's a cynicism that is I guess, well placed because there's a lot of corruption and there's the income inequality and corporations seem to live by their own rules and the rich have a different lives than we do. So, we have this cynicism that is then, exploited by other corporations that want to sell us stuff and prey on our fears and stuff. So then, if you do that for enough time, you have people that become skeptical of these things, and human nature is we believe bad stuff before we believe good stuff, right? It's easier to spread gossip than it is truth, and lies. So I think that it's really insurmountable to come across. I think it's important that we have better strategies to get good information out. And I think the reason that pretty much society has moved to a post-COVID standpoint, everybody's fatigued, everybody's emotionally drained. A lot of people have been pouring good water into rusty buckets with holes in them, as you're describing, right? And so everybody's kind of tired of it. So we want to move past it, and we have the confidence to move past it, and that's because of the vaccinations. That's because of the testing accessibility. So now we can get to a point where we don't have to have mass hospitalizations and all of that stuff, and we really understand what we're dealing with. So I said this very early in the pandemic, that we will reach a point of acceptable death. And the question becomes what is that? And the problem with that is that if let's just say 10% of the people that have died were under 18, I don't think we would be having half the conversations. So this is really how our society values the elderly. And that kind of speaks to it as well. If this mutates into something that could be dangerous to children, that will be very bad if we're in I'm tired of COVID mentality. And that's the part that I fear the most.
Well, and I understand that. So, but what you said earlier about us being cynical or not liking corporations, so everybody, zeroes in on Pfizer and Moderna, and they're just trying to make money off of everybody. and all the skeptical people are talking about the rich or who are making money off of this, and they're really injecting other diseases into you while they're giving you the virus. I mean, it drives me nuts to hear that stuff.
Well, I mean, they focus in on me, right? So they'll say, Neil, the only reason you care about this is because you get paid to give vaccines. Right. As if two thoughts couldn't hold true. Like, I want our community to be protected, and I've done everything I can to take care of marginalized groups and people that had no access to this, to get our community to the front of the line, and I should get paid for my service. And what I say to folks all the time is, if you don't want that profit incentivization side of it, we agree on that. That's called universal health care. It's not socialism, but it's a lot different than the crony, crazy capitalism stuff that we have. So my focus in my rhetoric when I'm talking to the public is to call out the hypocrisies with all of this. And so if we have a disease, we need professionals to help us study it and prevent it and treat it. And that while there is profit in there, there's profit in trees that get fallen during an ice storm. Are they profiting off of a storm, or are they providing a service? What about the pizza places that deliver pizza when we have to lock down? Did they profit off the pandemic? No. The people who profited off the pandemic are these Joe Rogans, these Dr. Mercola, these people that are spreading this information and telling people that, don't take the vaccine. Instead, take this vitamin cocktail. And of course, they're selling this vitamin cocktail. Now, keep in mind, most of my income comes from supplements. And so I could have at any time leveraged my trust and just stole people nonsense, right? Yeah. And so it's a choice about integrity more than it is about profit.
Good for you. Well said. It was well said, and I think that's where we run amok in this country, is that people are so confused because of the Joe Rogans and of the world who continually, are being very virile about their negative approach to the vaccination because for whatever reason, as well the guy has a presence, obviously, of 20 million people or something like that. But at the same time, the baloney that comes out is really sad when you think about the people who believe it, who are naive enough to believe it, and then those who suffer as a result of those who aren't vaccinated getting sick and maybe not dying, but getting sick and infecting those who are more compromised. I find that to be really hypocritical and sad, really. Anyhow.
Yeah. And so, just to end this conversation about the negative side of this and where we're exasperated, our goal should be a more reasonable approach to everything. And I feel like COVID shines a light on a lot of problems that affect the health and wellness industry, the profitability being one of those conversations. But I think that the problem comes down to that people are bad at math, meaning they don't understand their own real risks associated with COVID and what it can do to them and what it can do to other people. And they make their decisions based on the bad math. If I told you that the COVID vaccine, it doesn't. I'm just, if I said that COVID vaccines cause, let's just say hepatitis or cirrhosis in 5% of the population that took it, right? So an inflammation of the liver or something
But it doesn't. We're saying it doesn't.
It doesn't, of course not. If I said that to you, you would be like, oh, I would never take that in my life.
Right.
Meanwhile, turmeric has that risk, right? And if I have to go red in the face telling people about the risks of turmeric before they stop taking it, right? So we have the inability to do proper risk analysis, and if the story fits with how we picture our lives, that radically changes that math as well. So if you're already skeptical of the systems, you're already skeptical of vaccines for no good reason, just the media and the nonsense, Jenny McCarthy or whatever, you're going to do the math in favor of you not getting the vaccine. If you love supplements and you think they're better than pharmaceuticals, even though pharmaceutical companies make them, and even though there's higher adverse events, there's less studies, all of that stuff, you're going to take the turmeric because it fits with what you want from the world. So I just want to say to folks, like, none of that's good. We have to have a better approach to manage our wellness holistically, and vaccines are one of the most holistic treatments you can do, because it is truly improving your immune system and giving you the ability to live a longer, healthier life. And there's much more to it, but like, of course, that's kind of the 10,000-foot view of it.
It's well said, Neil. You crystallized this very well for people. But the sad part is, I think sometimes we're singing to the choir,
Yeah, and that's where, like, the people that do listen to me, they also have to hear me criticize them. Like, come out of your closet, stop wearing vinyl gloves in public, right? Like, we don't need to do temperature screenings, and we don't need plastic barriers. We should be post all of this. There are plenty of things that should be removed, and we should stop doing stupidity, and we should learn to live alongside COVID instead of trying to eradicate it or pretend it's not real.
I think that's true. So with regard to antibodies being present in the beginning, at least for the first dose, 80%, and then the antibodies waning over 6 months, and having the second vaccine, what percent you think have the second vaccine about?
Well, the booster dose, and so, like, terminology is really important. So when I tell anybody about any of this stuff, it's really important we talk about the right things, because third doses, boosters, fourth doses, all of that stuff is getting confusing. So the primary series is the first set of doses you get that gives you your full immunity. And right now, they're recommending mRNA over Johnson & Johnson, right? And you get 2 doses. If you're immunocompromised, meaning you have a severe disorder that severely suppresses your immune response, they want you to have 3 doses. Okay? And so that's the primary series. Then you have a booster dose 5 months after that to improve the response and boost up your antibodies. And so that's the first booster. And we have to say that now because we're talking about second boosters. And so it looks like we're pushing to approve second boosters in patients that are 50 or older.
Right.
And that's great. I think that's a good idea, because this is clearly affecting vulnerable people, which are normally elderly, 65 and above, or people with comorbidities, and that tends to be people in that 50-plus age bracket. Now, of all the people that were initially vaccinated, or I guess of the American population, like 80% are initially vaccinated, only about 35 to 40% are boosted. Now, a lot of people got the natural booster of Omicron, which is good, but still, that was 5 months ago now, right? November to now, right? 4 or 5 months ago. So now everybody's antibodies are going to wane again. And so I believe that I don't think it's unreasonable for people who are 50 and above, vulnerable people, to consider twice annual shots for COVID to maintain their protection until we get to a point where we know it's mutated out into something very weak and there's no chance of something new.
I was just reading that as early as this week, maybe, the CDC may approve the second booster. Is that
well, and here's something that's important too for everybody to hear, because I actually, this is something that causes stress in my life. Since the beginning of this, the process has been speculation and chatter about, in the news, second boosters are needed and all this other stuff, right? And maybe it's based on studies or maybe it's based on whatever, right? The second step is that the drug companies go to the FDA and say, here's our data. The third step is the FDA then convenes and reviews that and approves that. And that's like a 2-step process, technically, within that. And then that goes to the CDC, and the CDC approves it. Once the CDC approves it, we have to wait for the New York State Department of Health to approve it. And once that's all done, then we're legally authorized to give those doses. So even though the New York Times has been talking about it now for 2 weeks, I've been talking about it for a couple months now, right, because I saw this coming, right? But, we have we have some time. Even if the FDA meets this week, we have to wait for the CDC and we have to wait for the Department of Health. So it'll be 2 weeks or more unless there's some rapid approval process that comes that's completely unlike what we've dealt with for the first 6 times or 7 times we've had this rolling approval process.
Okay, hold that thought on the second vaccination. Yeah. We're going to take a break here, okay? Dan's over here signaling to me, and then we can talk about the dose. And Dan, are you ready? And we'll be right back.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, thank you, Neil, for holding on, and we'll be right back after these messages and announcements.
Hello.
Okay, thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. And it's Monday, March 28th, and it's only 20 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by Herzog's. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building and maintenance and painting needs, and discover the difference of buying local. Sales ongoing at herzogs.com. And we'll be right back after these messages.
A teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids. Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Scott Harrington from Hurley, and I support Kingston Community Radio because the people need a place to have their voice heard, and it's lost in corporate radio, so please keep listening and supporting our station.
And thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. It's Monday, March 28th. Where did March go? It's 20 degrees now here in Uptown Kingston. It's going to go up to 28 degrees today with a few flurries or snow showers possible, a high of 28. Wasn't that interesting that we had a few flurries and snow showers last night? But it's going to be partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 19. And Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high of 39. Tuesday night, down to 21. Clear to partly cloudy, and Wednesday, mainly cloudy with a mixture of rain and snow showers possible, 50% chance of that, developing in the afternoon with a high of 41 degrees, and Wednesday night, 34 degrees is our low, and cloudy skies. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge 550 team up for a breakfast live remote, and Tuesday, March 29th, that is tomorrow, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Come to Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue, Kingston, New York. And cost is $10 for a great spread of eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, juice, teas. And Kingston Community Radio will be broadcasting live that morning with Cameron Rylance and Nina Postapak doing their normal show from that location. So come in and enjoy the show with with Cameron and Nina and their guests tomorrow morning. And that is at Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue. Everyone is welcome. Please come in. And it'll be great to see you. It'll be very, very nice to see you. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley. One right near you. Now let's get back to the... I've got a birthday here, okay? We've got a 100% chance of winning, and that is, please wish a happy birthday to Sally Nichols. And sorry we didn't do it at 8 o'clock. We had a a plethora of guests calling in, and we missed our opportunity to do it at 8 o'clock. And Sally Nichols, I hope you're hearing this. This Monday, March 28th, happy birthday from your friends at the Rosendale Seniors. And you have won the Boyce Dairy Milkhouse cow pie. Go pick up your cow pie at 62 O'Neill Street, Kingston, New York. And your famous cow pie is waiting for you. Sally Nichols, happy birthday. Now let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Ed Alio and Neil Smoller.
Thanks, Dan. And, hey, Neil, before I forget, I'm going to mention to the listeners, if you have questions, this is the person to ask, Neil Smoller. Call in at 845. Our number is 331-9255. I would encourage you to do that because it's important that you ask us a question, or ask Neil in particular a question, because he is a wealth of information. And Neil's a pharmacist at the apothecary in Woodstock, New York here. Hey, Neil, before I forget, when people get the booster, are you doing the booster at your pharmacy?
Yeah, so we've immunized, we've given 57,000 doses at this point across Ulster and Dutchess County. We're one of the top pharmacy immunizers in the country. And on top of that, of course, we've given nearly 40,000 COVID tests across a couple counties, mainly in schools. So we do offer them. And what I would tell everybody that's listening that's interested in getting boosters, I will make it as easy as possible for you to get a booster. When the second doses are available, we, of course, will have them at the store. We're actually building our plan right now. We will have full-time presence in Ulster and Dutchess County for at least a couple weeks.
Neil, is the second booster different from the first booster, or the same thing?
It's going to be identical. It's going to be identical. And you can mix and match, and you can get Pfizer if you got Moderna, but just we would recommend staying away from Johnson & Johnson. It's been shown very ineffective against Omicron.
Good for you.
Neil, I have a great question, and it is open. It's an open forum with this. What is the efficacy of mixing? Like, for instance, I had Moderna, and Moderna. Now, what is the efficacy of doing a Pfizer second booster?
So here's a couple things that we know about Pfizer and Moderna are giving this excellent level of protection that we've never really seen with some of these vaccines before, right? But at their heart, they are the same, okay? So Pfizer is 30 micrograms and Moderna is 100 micrograms, okay? So when you get the primary series, you're getting 100 milligrams twice, and with Pfizer, you're getting 30 micrograms twice, okay? Then with the booster, they drop the Moderna dose down to 50. So you're getting 50 of Moderna, 30 of Pfizer when you get your booster. So what we've seen throughout this whole thing is that both of them are excellent. Moderna gives the stronger response, which makes a lot of sense because it's a higher dose, right? And so even when they've compared Pfizer at 50 to Moderna at 50, Moderna was, for some reason, stronger. So if you're in the mRNA camp already, I don't really suggest mixing and matching unless you want only Moderna. So if you're Moderna, I would just stay on that path because that seems to be a great path. There's no reason for you to mix and match.
Okay,
if you have Johnson & Johnson, you definitely need to do that. And if you have Pfizer, it makes sense to mix and match the Moderna because of the great protection.
Is Moderna more available than Pfizer right now?
No, they're all equally available.
Now, and what is do insurances pay for it? Is this free from the government? How's that working, partner?
So this is still being provided by the government, but there are a number of GOP folks that have blocked the funding requests for boosters and uninsured people. So right now, actually, in the next 7 days, if you're uninsured or underinsured, you will have to pay for the COVID vaccine. And it's a horrible thing. Like, I go to some college campuses and none of these kids have insurance because they're like in this weird spot. And now they're not going to have coverage anymore because this funding's going away, right?
So the funding has ended, and so
the funding has ended
for the
and
booster
so the programs. Yeah. So the booster. So they needed about $20 billion for all these programs to make sure that every American had access to a booster. They have enough to pay for second doses for the vulnerable population. So this round of boosters is still going to be on the House. It's still going to be on the government.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody 50 and above will have access to the vaccine, right? If you're uninsured, you will not. You will have to pay for it.
Even if you're
But
50 and above, or just
if you're 50 and above, you will have to pay for this booster.
Really?
Yeah. If you're 50 and above, I'm sorry. Let me say, if you're 50 and above and uninsured, you will have to pay for this booster.
If you're insured, does your insurance
If you're
pay for it?
insured, the government will still pay the insurance companies to take care of it.
So you have to have your insurance card, and then the insurance company doesn't bill you, but the government pays the insurance company.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's kind of ass backwards. Excuse me.
The whole thing is actually like a big failure of us to implement some semblance of a universal health care. This kind of showed how important it was. At the beginning of this, at COVID, everybody should have been assigned a COVID ID, and then that should have covered your vaccination tests and all of the things related to COVID stuff. And that would have made my life easier. Like, if people are talking about the profitability of this, I could have been paid half if I didn't have to chase down everybody's insurance and deal with the insurance nightmare that I had to. That was 30% of our time, was just doing paperwork around insurance reimbursement to make sure we did get paid for what we did.
Again,
so
this-
if we just had a simple method, that would be great.
Exactly. This, again, shines a light on what you said earlier. COVID shines a light on our whole health industry.
Everything, from soup to nuts. The wellness industry, the health industry, all of it.
But in all fairness, let me, we have, in the United States and the government, who I never think the government does anything right, did do a good job this time around, I believe.
Right.
At least we got
We
80%.
cobbled together a halfway decent system. And again, like, it was
Emergency.
the first time in my career that I've been able to provide a service and not have to worry about the other shoe dropping, meaning like I wasn't going to get paid fairly for what I was doing.
Right.
If somebody's insurance was playing a game, the government picked up the slack. So this was the first time in 16 years as an owner that I've had that.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. It happens in my practice too.
Yeah.
We're always chasing the insurance companies, and they're always denying us.
Right.
And I have the saying that insurance companies are in the business of not paying.
Of course.
But anyhow, that's an aside. So let's talk about the therapies. So if somebody does become ill and does have the Omicron or Deltacron variant, what are the therapies now?
Well, so there's monoclonal antibodies, which are, just basically synthetic antibodies. Our body makes antibodies when we either get sick or when we get vaccinated that protect us. And this is just, if you don't have those, this just kind of adds to the party to help like neutralize the virus. Now, the thing about Omicron, Deltacron is that a lot of the monoclonal antibody therapies don't work against them.
Really?
So we have all this, So we have, like, I was going to get in the business of providing monoclonal antibodies because we have 40 nurses, to do this across 2 counties. And we found out that, like, they're not effective. So, that's one of the current problems is, like, the technology doesn't move fast enough for that, right? And then the second thing is antivirals. So there's a few antivirals that are in limited supply that can be given to people that are diagnosed with COVID, depending on their risks and such. So that's the idea of the test to treat. So you come into my pharmacy, you get a COVID test, you're positive. We can then administer without having to call a prescriber. We can administer a protocol of either antivirals or monoclonal antibodies to treat somebody there, so that way they don't have to go into the hospital, which is a perfect use of pharmacies, right?
Right, I think you're right. They do it in other countries all the time.
Of course.
So,
but
what
like that, we are not participating in that right now. And like, again, the people that are, they're noticing, not very, for the costs, it's not really very effective.
The cost of the drug or the cost of
like monoclonal antibodies are expensive,
So what are the antiviral?
Antivirals are specifically formulated for COVID, and they will definitely reduce the severity of this, especially if it's caught early and given to the right person. But, my whole thing with this is like, just don't get it, right? So it's very simple. Like, it can't get any simpler, right? We know it's not transmitted on surfaces, so you should be washing your hands, though, very frequently. If you're in that vulnerable population, I don't care what the mask mandate says, you should be wearing a mask. My pharmacy is one of hundreds of thousands of places you can get N95 masks right now, right? You can walk into my store, say I want N95s, and I'll just give you a handful, right? Because that's what the Biden administration allowed for, right? And so you can have access to good quality masks that stop the spread of this thing. And that's really all you need to do. You need to, maybe if you're vulnerable, you're not going out to an inside bar that's filled with people that are not, that are high risk, right? And so if you do these things, stay up with your booster, you're going to be fine. You get in a plane, you wear an N95, you just have to make the smart mitigation decisions and you will be fine.
So are the steroids, some physicians are prescribing some kind of steroid treatment along with the antiviral, or is that part of the antiviral?
Well, I think that there are certain points of the disease where steroids are important because it is like a hyper-inflammation syndrome that's kind of caused.
Right.
And I think that's more left to the hospitals and such and like the infectious disease doctors to decide if the patient is, at the right point for that. The test to treat model in the community isn't associated with that right now.
So you really don't, at your pharmacy, you don't have any treatment programs other than just the vaccinations and the boosters, right?
Right. We're signed up for, and we're kind of like, putting the policies in place. But I think there are better places because like we're just so geared up to be doing this mass stuff. Like, so I'm doing the vaccines at this mass scale, the testing in all the schools, but then also testing in our store. We're doing, hundreds of tests a week, but then we're distributing those at-home tests through insurances all over the place. So I've given out 25,000 at-home tests into the community, right? And so, like, I feel like if I focus on those things and then somebody else can do the test to treat stuff, then I'm okay with that, But I'm going to offer it as an option because, it's clearly needed still in our area. We don't have a lot of positivity in Woodstock and Saugerty. We don't have those stresses, but I want to have it there just in case it becomes an issue.
So the at-home test. So when someone's positive at at-home test, they don't report to the health department, do they?
No, not at all. And that's why it's important that we use other metrics, hospitalizations, but wastewater monitoring and stuff. And like the labs that are testing and sequencing can tell us what's going on, statistically, because so many people are being affected.
Do you, when you give out your at-home tests, do you suggest that they report back to you so you have some numbers at all?
I just think that would be a rather fruitless endeavor. Like, I just think that, it's more like, the biggest thing for me is making sure that people use the test correctly and then making sure that if they are positive, they're like, oh, well, on day 5, I can go back to work or whatever. And that's not necessarily the case based on your symptoms and, what's going on with you. So making people understand what the real protocol is once you become positive, right? So just because 5 days have passed doesn't mean you can go right back. If you're still symptomatic, you got to stay home for the full test,
So since we're mentioning symptomatic, what are the symptoms that would suggest that 5 days is not long enough?
So any of the symptoms that we've been talking about for COVID, so like cough, fatigue, fever, chills, sneezing, nauseousness, all of the stuff that, which very much fall in line with a cold. And that's why I think it is important that people have access to these at-home tests, because life would just stop for a big chunk of the population that takes this way too seriously if every time they had allergies or a cold, they would think that they had COVID, right? So I think having at-home tests and getting 2 a week is essentially what the program allows for, allows you to either test yourself on a routine basis or test pretty frequently if you have those symptoms. And that's what happens here. I've got a bunch of kids that are now at school without masks, and everybody's getting colds every 2 days now, right? So we're constantly testing our kids to make sure that they don't have COVID. And then that kind of influences our decisions. And that's how the test should be used. We should take advantage of that.
So are you seeing any upsurge in children in school with COVID, or is it just colds?
Right now we're seeing we do the surveillance program. So we're just kind of randomly screening people. We have to screen everybody who's unvaccinated that works for the school, but then just random. And we're seeing more positive stuff. But because they also got rid of contact tracing and all this other stuff, we're not seeing as much as we did. So before Christmas, when everything was still in place, at one of the school districts, we tested 180 children in the Test to Stay program. And we got 20 of those kids were positive, right? And then immediately we come back from Christmas break and all of those rules are now gone. And now we're only testing 20 kids. So it's not like all of those kids were healthy. It's just that we weren't looking, right? And so that's the big difference, is that whether or not we see the positives, I don't think that really matters because of the vaccines and the boosters.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If I were to do one of the self-tests at home, and I did test positive, the first thing that I would do is run to the phone and call my primary care physician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And you could do that, and then they may report it, or they may tell you to call the local Department of Health.
Thank you. Yes.
They would tell you what to do. Okay, well, monitor it. If you start to feel these symptoms, then you got to call me back, and that kind of a thing. But
does the health department still monitor the people who call in? Do they get back in touch with them?
Yeah, and that's the thing everybody needs to understand about the Ulster County Department of Health and Executive Pat Ryan's response in general. It's been top notch. There are a number of counties that I've encountered across the country that have been radically more aloof and have really dropped the ball. And we're if I didn't exist, we would still be fine, because the county health department would just I feel like they could take it a little bit easier, because they know I'm out vaccinating and stuff, but they would have been able to provide the 57,000 doses that I did easily, So our county health department's still very much on top of it.
Well, that's good to hear. And that helps. So you 57,000 doses and 40,000 tests you've done. Does that include the school district, or just?
That's with the school districts. I was actually hoping that more people would take advantage of the weekly screening program in schools. I was hoping for at least 20 to 30 kids per school, with teachers and everything, 20 to 30 people per school. We're getting a lot less than that. And so that's why our testing numbers are shorter than what we thought they would be. I was thinking that we'd be testing about 100,000 people per county. And I think we may hit that in Dutchess, but I don't think at this point anymore, with the change in the rules and everything. So.
Have you seen any resistance yet in the teachers not being vaccinated, or are most of them vaccinated?
I think that after I became the local hero for a little bit, if we can use those words, it was a very tough transition into being the villain, dealing with any of the mandates, whether it's nursing home or hospital residents that need to get vaccinated, or in any of the situations where the testing was mandated. So we did stuff for schools, but other places as well. And we became the object of everybody's ire, right? So everybody kind of acted very unprofessionally and inappropriately. A lot of people acted inappropriately and unprofessionally in a number of situations, schools or otherwise, that I was actually surprised to see, because I would figure that most people would just be like, I'm going to take this up with the school and not the person picking my nose, right? And so, just to show you how dramatic that is, we've had a death threat
really?
About this testing program, yeah. And we have, in a number of situations, had to have security present when we were performing testing in different situations. So people are acting like violent babies.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how you can even take the so-called well-educated people, academically speaking, and find out that they're just as ignorant about the protocols, the value, etc., than you would believe.
When you find out that a majority of hospital workers are vaccinated, but there are a number of nurses and doctors that are not, a surprising number. You start to go, Jesus, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, right. I see
and
that.
I would say like the teachers in, I'll say this clearly, the teachers in Ulster County have been overwhelmingly vaccinated. Like it's a huge number of people. But that's not all that works in the schools, of course. So and again, in other businesses, we've had to deal with this too. And some of the C-suite guys are not vaccinated and are jerks about the whole thing. So
What was that last group?
The corporate suite, those guys, like the highly compensated VPs and stuff. So.
Of course. Yeah. It amazes me. No matter how we look at it, I'm amazed all the time about these. So back to the boosters. So that it'll be about another month or so, you think, before the second?
I think within the next 2 weeks, I think we'll be okay. And so everybody's going to want to revisit my site. Okay, so it's drneal.co or drneal.co. So drneal.co. And then right at the top, it says COVID. And then I've got blogs and content about COVID, but then we've got the vaccines and we've got tests. And it's got all the information you can need. I have updated schedules and information on boosters and how to sign up, how to get a dose, what to do. Cool. All of that stuff has been, like, the one bit of praise I take most personal is, like, how easy it is to navigate our system. And so I think, and you should take advantage of that. So you can go to our booster page right now and get all the information you need. And soon we're going to have a, hey, notify me once boosters are ready, kind of sign up thing.
So drneal.co, not .com.
Yeah, just .co. I try to make it as few characters as possible for people.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job, by the way.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You are, for us anyhow, you're a leader in this, and you're probably the best source of information that I know of anyone, even some of the physicians I know. I think that they could learn a lot from you and your protocols.
No, I think what everybody has to remember is that pharmacists are like masters of therapy, right? And we know what we know, and we know who in our world we should be listening to. We know what we don't know. It's impossible for us to know everything about every drug, and it is impossible for us to know everything about every therapy or every condition. So I have immunologists, virologists, I have pharmacist peers in immune deficiency wards. We have experts that I talk to and listen to constantly. And then on top of that, I try not to be an alarmist. And I also am still willing to have those weird conversations with people that are resistant and such. So, like, I think that perfect storm together is what makes it so it's, like, good. But I think it's important for us to know, like, I'm not pretending to be a physician. I'm not smarter than a physician. I just am listening to really smart folks and just repeating what I'm hearing.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I have to give you credit again because you're still willing to speak with those people who are not even on the fence, and listen to their rationale for not getting the booster or getting the vaccine, and being tolerant enough to listen. Yeah. I mean, I would be so fatigued at this point after 50.
Well, I'm also not afraid to call people out for their nonsense, right? So, like, that's the other part of it, is that I don't mind getting into a little verbal scuffle with people, if they're going to be, just end it on. I appreciate everything you've said. I appreciate the opportunity to serve the community like this. This has really been a professional dream for me, and I will continue to do it as long as I possibly can. And yeah. So that's I'm happy to do it.
Well, I'll tell you, Neil, this is the second time you've been on with me, and I looked forward to this hour, and it's gone by really fast. And you've done a yeoman's job. You have done so much for the community, and it's definitely appreciated. It is appreciated, and thank you so much for doing it. And thank you for being on with us. And we'll talk again. Okay.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
Take care of yourself, Neil. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and also streaming on mykcr.org. And a very, very special thanks to Matt Purcell, acupuncturist, and Neil Smolar. Village Apothecary in Woodstock. And thank you so much. All about COVID and our new world. You've been listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. And again, a very, very happy birthday. And the winner of the famous Boyce Dairy Milkhouse cow pie goes to Sally Nichols from your friends at the Rosendale Seniors. And we had another birthday too, exactly. Russell Renfro, also from your friends at the Rosendale Seniors. I didn't announce that at 8:30, but happy birthday, Russell Renfro. And you've been listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. And until tomorrow, by the way, just for a few seconds, let's just review. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge 550 team up for a breakfast live remote tomorrow. So tomorrow, jump in your car, come to Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue, Kingston. Cost is $10 for a breakfast. Come in at 7. Come in at 7:30. Come in at 7:45. Come in at 8 o'clock. We'll be there. 8:30. Cost is $10. Breakfast includes eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, and juice. Kingston Community Radio will be broadcasting live that morning with Cameron Rylance and Nina Postjapak doing their normal show from that location. And that location is 143 Hurley Avenue. That is the Kingston Elks Lodge from 7 to 9 a.m. Come be with us tomorrow, okay? We're going to have a great time. Okay, so without further ado, we will now return you to Magic 92.5.